Hi there, my name is Kim. I'm a doula in the Toronto area, and I thought today I'd talk a little bit about pumping. I know many people we want to breastfeed, we want to do this is what we want to do, we want to feed baby from our body, and I get it. But sometimes things don't go as planned, and sometimes we need to have a little bit of information about pumping and how it all works. So that's what we're going to do in this section. So there's going to be several reasons why one might need to pump. If your baby ends up in the NICU for whatever reason, so if they have to be in the special care nursery with some extra special support, we'll want to get feeding going, we'll want to get your supply going, and pumping can be very helpful for that. If you've had a surgical birth, if you've had a cesarean birth and you miss that first golden hour of getting baby onto your body to feed, you're going to have a few hurdles to get over, which means pumping can help start that process. If you've had some initial latching with baby, if there's been any issues with feeding baby, getting baby latched while you're in hospital, getting pumping started to, again, get your flow going, get your milk coming in, giving baby supplementation that isn't formula can be extremely helpful. And eventually you could possibly be pumping just to give yourself a break. Maybe your partner can help with feeding or somebody else can help with feeding so that you can get some rest, especially if you've had any sort of postpartum mood disorders going on. For me, I know personally that pumping and having my partner give a bottle in the nighttime was extremely helpful because sleep when I had my postpartum depression was extremely helpful. And finally, you may be pumping because, well, that's your choice. That's what you want to do. And some people will just want to pump and give bottles occasionally. Some people will want to pump exclusively. That's totally fine too. But what kind of pump are we going to use? If you are pumping by choice, if you are exclusively pumping, you're going to want to choose something that's going to be heavy duty, that's going to make pumping a lot quicker and easier for you, and that might end up being a double electric, heavy duty kind of pump. If you're just supplementing for the short term, if the goal is to eventually exclusively body feed, no problem. You're just going to pump for a short period of time. You might want to consider maybe just a handheld electric, which is going to give you a little bit quicker, but also not be super expensive either. If you're only going to be giving baby a bottle periodically, then you would need something simple, and it doesn't even need to be electric. It could be non-electric if you wanted to, such as the Haka or things like that. These can be helpful. So when do we start pumping? Well, if baby's in the NICU, if you've had a surgical birth and latching isn't going well, if you're in hospital and latching isn't going well, or if you're choosing to pump exclusively, then you're going to want to start pumping right away. Especially while you're in hospital, if baby is in the NICU or there's been a surgical birth, I would ask your hospital if they have a pump that you can rent and start using that one. I would also suggest that, especially in the very beginning, the colostrum that you have, try to do some hand expression of that as well, and that can sometimes be a little bit easier to collect the colostrum. Now, if you're only pumping occasionally, if you're only giving baby a bottle occasionally, I usually find it's best to wait for the first 3 weeks after baby is born. In the first 3 weeks, baby has 3 growth spurts that they're going to go through. And these are all in an effort to get things working well and to also get your supply going well too. So if you can wait until after that 3-week period before you start introducing the odd bottle, that's not a bad thing. How often should you pump? Well, if baby's in the NICU or you're offering bottles exclusively, you'll want to pump following baby's eating schedule. So that could be pumping every 2 to 3 hours, probably for about 15 minutes or so. And you're going to want to do that in the evening as well. You're going to want to do this overnight as well. This will help ensure that you have a good production of milk for baby. If you are supplementing, if you've got a bad latch, if baby is in the NICU, then you're going to want to do it, and baby's still going to your body, you're going to want to pump after each feed. And this can, again, help stimulate production and can be either hand expression or with a pump. If your hospital has a pump, then definitely try to use that when you're still in hospital. For the occasional bottle, you're going to want to pump probably several times a day to build up the supply that you're going to need for giving baby that bottle. Some people pump just a little bit, and some people can pump quite a lot. We don't know what you're going to be like until we actually start pumping. So if you find that you're just a little pumper, then you're going to want to make sure that you are pumping multiple times a day so that you have that supply built up for baby and how much they're actually going to need. Now, storing of the milk, we usually use the rule of threes. So if you have pumped milk, it can sit out on the counter for 3 hours. It can sit in the fridge for 3 days, and it can be in a freezer for 3 months. And you'll want to store in smaller quantities. We don't want to store large quantities. 2 to 3 ounces per container is sufficient, and you can use either the bags or small containers, whatever. You also don't want to mix warm, fresh milk with the stuff that's already been in the fridge. So what you're going to have to do is whatever's in the fridge, whatever you've pumped, put that in the fridge, and then once they're both cold and the same temperature, then combine them. We don't want to be combining warm and cold because we don't want to curdle the milk, basically, and it can make the milk go a bit bad. Now, if you're pumping, but you don't necessarily want to introduce a bottle, there are definitely ways that you can offer pumped milk. A bottle is definitely going to be one, but we have to consider this is going to be a great option for exclusive pumping, or if you're going to be doing long-term supplementation because of the idea of flow for baby, fast flow versus what they're getting from your body. Doing occasional bottles after 3 weeks probably shouldn't be a problem. In those first 3 weeks, though, if supplementation becomes necessary for whatever reason, then you could also consider tube, syringe, or cup feeding. And these can all be taught to you really by the hospital staff or the lactation consultant that may be on staff at the hospital. And finally, some tips for pumping. As I mentioned before, some people are just small pumpers. We have to remember that your baby can take milk from your breast way more efficiently than a pump, because when you have baby on your breast, there's hormones and there's that connection and all of that stuff. But when we're using a pump, there's no hormonal connection. So you'll want to pump maybe with baby in the room with you. You'll want to consider even smelling something of the babies or having a picture of the baby there, just so you can have that sort of connection with baby to get those hormones flowing. And that's going to be the oxytocin and the prolactin and all of that stuff. And that can all be helped by having that connection with baby already there. The body knows it's a pump, and it's going to save back what it needs for baby. So trying to get things going and maybe even doing some skin to skin prior to pumping can be helpful as well. All right, good luck.